And we are back. I am waiting for Keegan to join me so we can keep going with our awesome conversation. Thanks for everyone who has been hanging out with us and watching. I really appreciate it. And there's Keegan.
Howdy.
Hey,
Howdy again.
how to do? So we're back. It's so great. It's like a rush to I have to find the right cover, because we have to both look cute in the
Yeah.
cover photo, and then you have to post it, and then my Instagram, whatever. But we're back.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming back in. We were kind of talking about anxiety and depression. Um, I wanted to ask you about coping skills.
Yes. Coping skills.
I know there are healthy ways to cope, and there are
Yeah.
unhealthy ways to cope. I've,
Yes.
I've done a little bit of both if we're
Yeah.
being totally transparent.
Haven't we all?
so,
Yeah.
so what are some healthy coping skills?
Yeah. I will begin this with saying that is the number one thing I work with clients on is coping
Hmm.
skills.
Oh, okay.
It's typically the first thing I work with clients on, especially if they're feeling a bit dysregulated,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of building skills around how to manage our journey together in a session and out of session.
Mm.
So coping skills, what I do, I'm a very strengths-based therapist, so I tend to help the client identify their own strengths. And just by getting to know them, I mean, I do that by just building rapport with the client and listening with who they are. And
Mm-hmm.
I help them identify how, oh, I like to go on walks or I like to exercise. I'm like, oh, that's a coping skill.
Mm.
So a lot of us are already engaging in those coping skills,
Hmm.
but maybe we're not connecting the intention behind why we're doing that, and maybe just
Ah.
bringing some intention behind the walk or the exercise. Um,
Hmm.
or if somebody likes art, then
Mm-hmm.
maybe painting. Like, do you like to paint? Do you like to sketch? And kind of helping people carve out time in their day for that activity, because it's so easy to not eat because we're working. Like, I can't tell
Yeah.
you any times where I just didn't eat, or
Yeah.
I would not go to the bathroom because it's like too important not to, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, just it's a form of self-love, like engaging in our coping skills. And I feel like the more that we can love ourselves, there's so much benefit from that we feel that we give to other people. When we love ourselves, we love more, we love others.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, engaging in those coping skills. And a lot of them, especially with walking, it's kind of hard being in telehealth, because typically if I was in seeing them in person, I would see if they'd want to go on a walk together, and
Mm.
we could do a mindful walk where we're like, okay, name like five things you see, and we go through their five senses and just taking them out of their thoughts
Yeah.
and into the present moment. The more we can do that, there's so many benefits to that.
Mm-hmm.
So just helping the client identify, or helping any yourself identify what those things are, what those activities are.
Yeah. I think one thing that I suggest often are gratitude walks.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting up in the morning or midday, whenever you want to take the walk, but just the entire time you're walking, thinking of how grateful you are to have whatever it is you have in that moment. I often tell um, my dancers, a lot of people, and I kind of go far with this, but it's true. A lot of people that I've taught people without arms. I've taught people
Mm,
without legs. I've taught deaf dancers. I've taught blind dancers. So just being grateful that you can walk, see, talk,
right,
move,
right,
you don't have to like go so far like I am grateful for all of the flowers and trees, like you can
right,
actually be grateful for things that you have every day.
right,
Often in dance, at the end of classes, we thank our bodies for, what it has allowed us to do. You know, I think it's so important to be gracious and, like you said, having intention behind
Hmm.
these things that we are doing, because we may just go for a walk, or we may paint, or we may even cook. But if we put the intention behind it, that could be a healthy way for us to cope.
Right.
I
And
love
I
that.
mean, drinking a glass of wine, having two or
Mm-hmm.
three glasses of wine, that's
Ooh.
okay. I'm okay with that.
Ah.
It's okay. I think, if people are concerned about like trying to identify a healthy versus unhealthy coping skill,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not so easy to like switch off your brain and like, oh, I'm going to go on a mindful walk and be so intentional and everything's like rainbows and sunshine. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you need a couple glasses of wine to
Mm-hmm.
really get things out of your mind, and that's okay. I think where it goes into a unhealthy coping skill is if it's doing more harm than good.
Okay.
If your glasses of wine or whatever drug of choice or whatever you're doing is actually working against you, that's when it's like, okay, maybe I should put that one down for now and pick up
Mm-hmm.
something else that's healthier, that
Mm-hmm.
kind of moves me forward instead of holding me back.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I
Yeah.
had an interview with a friend of mine on Monday, and she said you kind of have to have a cocktail of like your
Hmm.
healing cocktail, you know,
Yeah.
so it can't all be just you going on the
Right.
walks. It has to also be maybe the glass of wine,
Right.
you know, or it can be writing and walking, or you know, whatever it
Yeah.
is. We have to put those things together to be able to cope. It's not just I can do
Right.
this one thing, and this one
Right.
thing is going to always help me to be where I need to be. We may need
Yeah.
to pull from other places.
And I will tell everybody who's watching, you're going to have bad days, and sometimes you're going to need 10 coping skills that day. Like
Mm.
you're going to need, this isn't working, I need to do something else. Like keep going
Mm-hmm.
until you feel better. I can't tell you how many times where I just feel anxious or depressed, and I'm like, okay, I need to treat myself to something. Let me treat myself to a walk.
Yeah.
Okay, I still feel like shit. Let me go get a sugary drink from Sonic or Starbucks.
Yes, Sonic.
Okay. Yeah, sugar usually helps me. So, the happy hour.
Sugar is a go-to.
Yeah. So, like, sometimes that's what you need to go through a few, and that's okay. That is
Mm-hmm.
okay. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you're doing something wrong. It just means that day you might need more love, and that's
Mm.
okay to need more love. We're
Mm-hmm.
human.
Yeah, totally. Um, Kristen Young said, it took me years to realize you cannot pour from an empty cup. So
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, so that's my sister. She's a nurse. And especially with those people who are serve others for a living, who are
Mm-hmm.
in the front lines, it's really important for everyone, not just them, but for us to do things that fill our cup up. It's like providing like boundaries is another thing that I
Mm-hmm.
work a lot with clients, is building a boundary around work-life balance. Like I'm going to turn off nurse mode and turn on mom mode, or I'm a human, like I'm Keegan, like I'm gonna be Keegan for this next hour. I'm gonna be goofy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna like dance naked around my apartment. I'm going to like, call a friend, and I don't know, like you have to provide space for yourself, because if you just totally negate that, it's just going to build resentment and negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the trick, balance.
I have a question kind of out of nowhere, but I know earlier you mentioned being an extrovert,
Hmm.
and you just mentioned like maybe I'll call a friend. I think I'm an introvert. Well,
Hmm.
I'm like an extrovert introvert, but
Yeah.
I'm more so an introvert. And you know, I might not, you know, calling a friend may not be the easiest thing for
Right.
me to do.
Yeah.
So as far as an introvert, how would you say, what are some things you can practice to kind of put yourself out there a little more?
Oh yeah.
Because you, as an extrovert, you can call a friend, and that friend is going to be there for you, and you can talk some things out, and you're good to go. But as an introvert, it may take me a month to call someone.
Right.
You know. so
Yeah.
so what do we do?
What do you do? I mean, I can definitely relate to being an intro. I go through introvert extrovert phases.
Mm.
I think as an introvert, when I go through those phases, and I'm sure you can relate, you go through periods of time where, um, yeah, you don't have the urge to reach out, but I'm
Hmm.
sure you want that connection.
Right.
And so it's a hard balance because it's like, well, what do I do if that's not what I naturally feel to do? And I
Hmm.
think whatever you can come up with, because we're all different, whatever you can come up with in your toolbox of coping skills that helps you feel connected.
Hmm.
If that's just scrolling on Instagram and commenting on something, or like liking something, or writing a letter. Like, I love
Mm.
writing letters. Something that
Hmm.
gives you that connection with somebody, and that doesn't need to be you reaching out and doing work towards putting yourself
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Let's talk about writing letters. So,
yeah.
I had a recent experience, and I suffer from, or I experience very severe panic attacks.
Okay, yeah.
It's part of the reason why we moved from New York because I was having panic attacks every day. So, this Mother's Day, I had like these cards that I could write in, and I had stamps, and I was, I'm like, so I'm going to reach out to some people and write some letters, just send some love. And I had the biggest anxiety attack trying to write those letters,
Mm,
but I felt so good after doing it. I was able
mm-hmm.
to work through my attack. I totally addressed the envelopes wrong, so I had to like rip open the envelopes and do it all over again. But I worked through that moment, and the gratification of the person receiving that card and seeing the words that I wrote, it was
Right.
worth it going through the attack. So
Yeah.
sometimes, we have to fight ourselves through a moment because it
Yeah.
will be worth it in the end. But you have to like really fight tooth and nail, to get to
Yeah.
that maybe one simple task. Or it may be simple for someone else, I'll
Right.
say. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I can relate to that. Leading up to this call, I was having a lot of anxiety and panic about it
Mm-hmm.
just because it's live, and, you know, a lot's going on in my personal life. And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to not show. That's not even an
Mm-hmm.
option. So it's like, what can I do to love myself during this? So I lit incense. I
Mm-hmm.
got my crystals.
Mm-hmm.
I like, did some breathing exercises. And sometimes we have to add more coping skills onto it to really get you through it because
Mm-hmm.
it's important, writing those letters was important to you. So
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of take loving yourself and just like, you know what, like this feeling will pass,
Mm-hmm.
and let me just ride it for a second, and then
Right.
it passed.
Yeah. And I get anxious about everything these days. So I was a little anxious about our talk this morning as well. But Brooks, my husband, he just turned on some music and I was able to like dance it out.
Yeah.
But then I also find that sitting still really helps me, just kind of like stopping and doing absolutely nothing
Yeah.
helps. That's something that I used to do before performing because I
Mm.
used to, perform professionally for years. But I would just get super quiet. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't go anywhere. I would just sit still before I
Yeah.
performed. And I didn't realize, it was in hindsight that I realized that that was a way for me to kind of cope and to get myself in the right place to do what
Right.
it is that I needed to do to go out there and perform.
Right.
So I think, like you said, we have coping skills that we're not even aware of
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. So if we're more aware of those things, we can pull from that arsenal when
Right.
we truly need it.
And I like to work with clients on listing out, especially clients who like to write,
Mm-hmm.
writing out all the coping skills and putting it on their fridge
Yeah.
or putting it in their wallet, something to remind them, like, oh, here's my go-to, or here, like, in the biz we call safety planning. Um, so like creating a safety plan when I feel anxious or when I feel X, these are things I can engage in, or these are people I can call, or um, this is what I can watch, and knowing that that will bring you back down to baseline. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's important too, to just acknowledge, what's working.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You need that, especially during in this time where everything goes so fast.
Yeah,
Knowing the thing that's going to help you kind of click back into the moment is so valuable.
right. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. So let's see. What do we do when everything is not okay?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what what I was struggling with before this call is, yeah, because sometimes things aren't okay. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think we're all in a bit of a lot of feelings. I can't even name one. There's like so many feelings I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
personally, and there's really no correct way to feel. Um, and I think what's important for us to remember is love. And that's something that I've learned along my journey. There's love and fear. There's two opposite emotions. And once we can recognize we're living in fear, or like the emotion we're attaching is fear based, if we can just remember to love, like we don't
Mm-hmm.
need to ignore the feeling. We don't need to like avoid it. Just reframe it into love. Like, what can I do that puts love energy out there instead of this fear energy? And it's like, and the first thing I can think of is like, love yourself. Maybe like if you're feeling these bad things and you feel hopeless and like the world's falling down and there's injustice everywhere right now, it feels like,
Mm-hmm.
how can you love yourself right now? How can you be okay with feeling that? Like I like to hold my chest a lot and just say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. I will be okay. I love you. I accept you. And just trying to see where that would take me. It's
Mm-hmm.
moment by moment. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
it's just moment by moment.
And you know what we do? We just tell ourselves the wrong thing sometimes. We feel so much negativity in our head as opposed in that fearful moment of saying, I love you, you're okay,
Hmm.
you know, we just tell ourselves, you're totally wrong. Yes, there's, something wrong with you. You're the one to blame. This is your fault. This is, we tell
Yeah.
ourselves such horrible things sometimes. Um, so what would you say would be a good practice to start, telling ourselves more positive things and kind of filling our cup up?
Yeah. I think just understanding and learning that you can hold two feelings at once. Like two things can
Mm,
exist at once. Like you
mm,
could be angry and what else? What else is happening? Like, and I can love myself. Like, yeah, I am really angry and upset and grieving over what's happening. And there's also so much beauty around me right now. And it's a balance. It's really hard not to get sucked into
mhm,
that darkness and that fear. And I'm not saying to totally ignore it, or am I saying to just let it go? There is things that you can do. But I feel like if we're talking about in those moments where you just feel despair and hopeless, trying to identify, okay, I am going down a path that's not helpful
mm,
with like where I want to be. I don't want to feel like this. What can I do right now to like kind of break me out, give my brain a break from that?
mm,
That's going to exist tomorrow. This is going to exist today. It's going to exist. I don't know how long it'll exist for. To change, but what I can change is in thinking
mhm,
and maybe just engaging in a coping skill to like love on yourself. Give your brain like 5 minutes or 1 minute of a break. And if you go
mm.
back into that fear, that's fine. That's okay. But at least you gave yourself that 1 minute of break. And that could mean the difference in your day.
Love that. Just give your mind a break. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to give your mind a
I'll use
break.
it.
Yeah.
If no one else got something from that, I sure did.
Yeah, it's hard because we just gravitate towards that. We want to fix it. We want to know why. We want to
Mm-hmm.
understand. We want things to change. We want action. And when we don't have control, that makes the fire even bigger. It's just like, oh my God, like now I'm on fire and now I'm, dysregulated and now all these things are happening. And
Mm-hmm.
it can just take one moment to give your mind a break, and your mood could change.
Yeah. Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
If you break from, you know, that bad feeling or those bad thoughts, then what's to come out that but good, you
Yeah.
know?
For that
Um,
minute.
for that minute, yeah, if nothing else.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Keegan. So,
Yeah.
oh, I brought my book over.
Oh,
That
yes.
so this is The Big Leap. It's by Gay Hendricks, I think. Yeah, by Gay Hendricks. Dun,
Okay,
dun,
I'm
dun,
writing that down.
dun, 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 for anyone who wants to check it out. This is my second time reading it, and I'm getting such a deeper understanding. You know, sometimes you have to be in certain places to receive certain things the way that they need to be received. This is another book that I mentioned. Oh, I'll just do it right here. Daring Greatly
Yes, Brene.
by Brene Brown. Brene Brown, I feel like, is my best friend in the world. If you don't know,
Yeah.
if you don't know Brene Brown, everyone check her out. She has some really good TED Talks. If you just go to YouTube, type in Brene Brown, you'll find what you need, and
Yeah.
it'll be life-changing.
She
She
is.
has another book called The Gifts of Imperfection and Rising Strong.
Yeah.
All of them are great.
All of them. And she said it's such an easy read, and she's so relatable, and she's
Mm-hmm.
funny, and she makes
And she's
things
a
make sense.
Texan.
And she's a Texan. Yep. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. Uh, I love being Southern, by the way.
Yeah, same.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
We're lucky kids.
We are lucky.
Yeah. But anyway, do you have any resources? I know you
Oh, yeah.
mentioned Psychology Today, but do you have
Yeah.
any other resource? Oh, and you mentioned Better Health, which I don't
Yeah.
know what that is.
BetterHelp is an online platform for therapy. I think you buy a membership. I always check with your insurance companies first to see if insurance will pay for it. If the
Okay.
costs are too high, look into BetterHelp.com,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a membership that you can obtain a therapist, and it's all virtual, video, audio, or live chat.
Mm-hmm.
You do have access to the therapist daily, so you can get a response as quick as 24 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a really good way, especially right now with everything being virtual anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty cost effective. The other one is Talkspace, but I'm
Okay.
not sure what their platform is like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I mean, I have things written down somewhere. Definitely those. There's also like the hotlines, the apps. There's a few
Okay.
apps that people can download called My Life Meditation.
Okay.
It's free, and it's a good meditation app because it you check in by taking deep breaths. You really check in with what you're feeling, and then you can choose certain emotions that you're feeling in that moment, and then it will tailor pick a meditation for you based on what you're feeling.
Oh, wow.
They're great. I always, for some reason, test into like getting sleep. Every time I'm like, oh, I need to sleep more. I need to like, relax. There's that one. There's called Calm, which I think is advertised a lot, and that's free. And then there's also, if you're feeling like you're in crisis a lot, if you're feeling that you're just not in a good place and you are needing a lot of help, there's an app called My3 Support Network, and it really helps you set up a virtual support network with like your friends. It's like a safety plan app. And so if you're in crisis, you can log onto the app and it'll like, oh, I can call this friend. And it's like immediate. It's like, call this person.
Wow.
Here's some resources there in the app as well. So there's apps, and then there's like the, National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and the LGBT has their own hotline also that you can Google. I have the numbers written down somewhere, and now I just can't find them. So that wasn't really helpful, but they exist.
No, but okay, so the National Suicide
Prevention Hotline.
Prevention Hotline, and then LGBT
Yeah, they have a
has
hotline.
a hotline as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
we
each
can
state,
Google that probably.
yeah.
Right?
And each state has their own hotline as well. So
Okay.
yeah, just or just call a friend. I mean, I know that's really hard to do in times of crisis, because you're kind of just in the moment and you don't and I don't typically want to share what's going on with me a lot, so that's hard. But like just reaching out to a friend, reaching out for help, that's like the hardest thing, but it's the most helpful thing, because then someone
Right.
else is with you on your journey and can help you navigate while you're kind of, distracted by your symptoms.
Right. Hmm. All right. Well, we did it,
We
Keegan.
did it.
There was actually another question. I'm just like I was scrolling through and realized I missed
Yeah.
a question. So maybe this can be our last thing, and then we'll sign off. So, and I think that this may be a good place to end. How do we know if or when we need better boundaries?
Yeah. When or if we need better boundaries. Um, hmm. Trying to think of a clinical way to answer
Hmm.
that. um, I think that when what I notice in personal and professional is when people start, like I think we talked about this, blaming
Hmm.
um, other people, or they're talking about other people more than themselves. That's a sign to me that it's not necessarily that there's poor boundaries, but I'm wondering what boundaries we could set so that way you don't feel so you lack the power in that relationship. So
Hmm.
like, typically if someone's complaining about somebody else, I'm wondering in my mind, like, you're giving them so much power over your feelings.
Right. Hmm.
I wonder if there's a boundary we could set to help you reclaim some of that control in how you're feeling, and strengthening that relationship with boundaries, so that way, I don't like to be talked to in this way, or why don't we continue this some other time when I feel better about this. Boundaries are hard, because especially if you've never grew up learning boundaries from your family.
Hmm. Hmm.
So so it's a journey. It's really hard to know unless you're yeah, unless you've I think that's a huge indicator, is when you're really talking more about the other person than yourself,
Hmm.
or within yourself, if you have bad boundaries with yourself, if you're not meeting the goals that you want to meet, like if
Hmm.
you feel like you're not achieving what you want or setting goals, that's another boundary thing. It's just, okay, I need to set boundaries around watching TV, or I need to set
Yeah.
boundaries around my diet, or setting boundaries around something to kind of give more control to yourself.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. I think I need to practice. Well, I don't know if I'm good at setting boundaries or not. I'd have to ask my hubba
Well, it's
or
honestly
my
control.
family or, okay, well,
Yeah. It's like if you feel out of control or to control, if you're like one or the other, I feel like that's another way to navigate like knowing boundaries or not. When you feel you're either out of control completely or too much control, then
mm,
there's a boundary to be placed somewhere to kind of feel
okay.
more in the middle.
Hmm. Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do some reading up on boundaries.
Yeah.
It has
I
me
mean,
thinking now.
well, I'm sure you're fine. I'm sure you're fine. I hope I didn't place any thoughts in your
No,
mind.
I'm just like, I've never thought about that. I wonder, just
Yeah.
like having the thought of, am I setting healthy boundaries? And, am I in control? And am I taking too much control? I think those are all good questions to ask.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, thank you so much, Keegan.
Yeah,
This was
thank
an
you.
awesome chat. We talked for like an hour and a half.
I know we did. That was good. I really appreciate you asking these questions and allowing an audience to just take in whatever they need to take from it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. We had quite a few people join us throughout this whole conversation, so hopefully
Yeah.
they definitely took something away that
Yeah.
will serve them and help them grow,
Yeah.
and feel better. Yeah.
Yes. Especially going into this weekend. Everybody take care of yourself, do something kind to yourself, and love yourself.
Yes, do something kind. Oh, and Keegan, how can we contact you? I know that
Oh yeah.
you're practicing. You can see anyone in the state of Colorado, right?
Yep. I can see anybody in the state of Colorado. I am in the process of opening up my private practice clients for the first time. So I don't have a website or Psychology Today. I'm super just getting it started. I would say initially just DM me in Instagram. And then from there, as I develop everything, I'll just navigate people towards that. But yeah, start with Instagram. That's a good way for me.
Okay. So slide in his DM,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be
um,
happy to help as much as I can. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you again. We
Yeah.
have to do this again. I
Yeah.
think
I'm
there was
down.
like a lot more that we could talk
Oh,
about,
yeah. Uh-huh.
So yeah, I was like, oh
Oh, there
yeah.
you go.
And everybody plan on coming back to see
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. And I will probably definitely reach out to you about that life coach information. So,
Okay, yeah,
yes.
totally. I got you.
Cool.
All
All right.
right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
You
Have a
too.
good day,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.